Welcome to the Spiritual Geek Podcast, Wisdom for Modern Times, where we focus on living with intention to consciously create a life you love and celebrate. I'm your host, Sheila Franzen, and I'm so excited to share another episode with you. Today, Jan has joined me for a conversation about the healing power of forgiveness. Jan lives in Canada. As a person who is consciously on the ascension path, she loves to talk about her own ascension journey, energy healing sessions, and coaching, and aligning with her higher self in service to humanity. Jan's passionate about helping others to become self-empowered, to realize the divine power within through personal healing sessions, and to create harmony and balance in living and working environments through ascension dowsing. Jan, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Sheila. I'm really honored and excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share as part of your introduction?
Well, I was listening to everything that you said, and I feel that pretty much sums it up. I'm really honored and happy to be here, and that pretty much talks about what it is I do day to day in my everyday life, and how can I be in service to others. And there are always opportunities that come up each and every moment. So that's what my life is about these days.
Yeah, it's amazing. We find ourselves in conversation, whether it's a family gathering, out with friends, and those moments of how do we help create a moment of healing or understanding or new ideas. So that's what we're here with forgiveness today. And I just love that you brought up this topic of forgiveness. I've definitely been reminded when you proposed talking about forgiveness, I have found myself just pondering and recollecting all of the practices that I've had in my awareness, that I've learned over the years, that I've challenged myself with around forgiveness. And so I think it's just a beautiful topic. It's a very, I think, used word, but when we really talk about how it can shift our lives and our energy and heal, this should be a fun topic. So where would you like to start?
Well, you just brought up a lot of things in that last few statements that you made. And I think one of the reasons that forgiveness came to me was, well, first of all, I've spent a lot of time in the last few weeks visiting with family that I haven't seen for a very long time. Aunts and cousins and sister-in-laws and nieces and nephews and all of that sort of thing. And it was so interesting because I found myself a lot of times just being this objective observer about what was going on around me. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, if forgiveness could do something in this situation, or if only so-and-so could feel some forgiveness for this other person, or if only so-and-so could feel some forgiveness for themselves. And it just seemed to be pervasive in everything that I was observing, and all of the relationships and the conversations and how people were feeling about themselves. It was so evident. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is something that is really important. And you're right. I mean, you brought up the fact that we learn about techniques and we visit this and that and the other thing, and we practice it for a while, and we feel some change and some shift in ourselves and others. And then something else comes along and we jump to that and we get involved with that. And the forgiveness technique, the actual act of forgiveness keeps coming back. It recycles. It comes back over and over again. That's what I'm noticing.
So speaking of techniques, let's talk about a few. Like, what are your favorite techniques around finding forgiveness with others or forgiveness with self?
I think my most favorite technique is the Ho'oponopono, which is a technique that a lot of people have heard of. I was just speaking with someone yesterday, and they said, and I was bringing up the idea of forgiveness once again. And they said, "Oh, yes, I have the book." And I said, "That's great. Have you looked at the book? When did you last look at the book?" And that sort of thing. And I revisit. I've got 3 different books on Ho'oponopono. And for those people that are listening that maybe are not familiar with Ho'oponopono, it's a Hawaiian system of forgiveness that I think was developed, oh gosh, I'm guessing 15 to 20 years ago, or maybe it was developed long before that, but it was probably 15 to 20 years or so ago that I first heard about it and read about it. And it was written about by Dr. Hugh Len. And there are very simple, 4 simple statements that a person can say to themselves. And I think this is the beauty of Ho'oponopono to me, is that it transcends time. It transcends time and space. So if you are still, let's use an example, if you are still bothered by a relationship with a person that you had, and maybe that person is no longer around, you can still go through the forgiveness process with that person. And it's very freeing. It's very freeing and releasing of a lot of energy that does not need to be expended on, holding negative thoughts or grudges or resentments or, remembrances of something that you said a long time ago that you wish you hadn't, or something like that. So to me, these 4 statements that Dr. Hugh Len talked about, and they can be used in different orders. Sometimes people switch the order around, and I don't really think it matters. I think it's the essence of these 4 statements. And, usually it will start out with, "I'm sorry." So that's statement number 1. Statement number 2 is, "Please forgive me." Statement number 3 is, "Thank you." And statement number 4 is, "I love you." And each of those statements is very powerful on their own. And I think the point is to really feel those statements in your heart and say them with definite intention and meaning, heartfelt meaning for those statements. "I'm sorry." "Please forgive me." "Thank you." "I love you." So that technique of forgiveness, that Ho'oponopono mantra, is probably one of my most favorites. Another technique that I've used before that can also have similar results, but I always seem to fall back on the Ho'oponopono. Another one is, writing something down on a piece of paper, maybe making a statement of what you're regretful of or sorry for, and seeking forgiveness about that. And you can burn that piece of paper or crush it up and, burn it and let it float away on the water, let it float away. And as the paper is burning and the smoke is rising, you are sort of seeing those old feelings or emotions or remembrances that you maybe had just drift away, and they can be gone that way. And that is something a little more physical that people might relate to. So those are a couple that, are my favorites. Do you have any favorites?
I do. Well, I often, I've read the books and even gone through some of the classes on the Ho'oponopono, yeah, prayer. I'm tongue twisted right now trying to say it, but it's, I find that I use it because I've read the books and listened to the power of it and some of the stories. I mean, they're just incredible. If you want to hear some really neat stories about how the prayer has changed people's lives, it's pretty. I'm sure it comes from an ancient origin, right? Most of these things do in the Polynesian world, and the original prayer is actually much longer. But as you said, Mr. Lin kind of came up with these 4 phrases that totally summarize it. And what makes it so simple is like, it's so easy to remember, even if you only remember 3 of them, like, "I'm sorry, thank you, I love you," right? Like, "I'm
Exactly.
sorry, please forgive me, I love you." It's like I have found myself many a times where I've gotten frustrated and I need to just take a deep breath. And like the prayer pops in my mind and I just start repeating it in my head because as I'm breathing and I'm saying that, I'm shifting the energy, right? Like that's
Oh,
what we're really
exactly.
trying to do is shift our energies.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah. We're,
exactly right. We are shifting, we're transmuting, we're
yes,
shifting, changing that
transmutation.
energy up. Yes. Yes.
And so
And
that's where the healing power, that's where the healing comes from. And it's not that it's always our own beliefs and our own perspectives that wrap us up in the need to forgive. And it just brings us back to being able to be present, right? When you get really present and say, "I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you." If you
yes.
feel into
Yes.
those, like you were saying them, and when I say them, and you like you drop into your body and feel what it's like to say that, like your energy has to
Yes.
shift. Like there's no way around it.
It's so true. It is so, it is just so profound. I've had, my own personal profound experiences, which I'm sure you have as well. And you're right. I mean, the key is to really drop into your heart and feel it. Have
Hmm.
that feeling, that intention of, of really seeking forgiveness. And I've done this on walks. I've spent an hour, and every pace I take, I'm saying it over and over and over to myself in my mind, and I'm just like you. It'll pop into my head, and it will be okay. This is what I need to do to shift this energy, to shake this energy up a little bit. The other thing about it, and you touched on it without really saying it, is that it brings us back to our own power. So
Mm-hmm.
we are standing in our own power. We are doing something about the situation. We are taking responsibility for a situation, a relationship, something that has occurred, because it always takes more than one person. There's always a give and take, there's always an exchange of energy that happens. And so, in saying this prayer, we are stepping into our own power, taking that responsibility, drawing that energy back into ourselves, into our own hearts, and changing it up for the better.
Yes, exactly. And when we're in our power, then we
Mhm.
can find perspective again, right? We're able to find love
Exactly.
and peace. You asked about techniques, and I'm an avid reader, and I still continue even on my journey. I love to read, particularly people who have channeled the ascended masters. And there's
Hmm.
many amazing people today that have channeled so many beautiful messages. And the ascended master that I think has spoken more on forgiveness through many different channels is Jesus or Yeshua, that you
Hmm.
may read about him in different books and pathways. And, the Course of Miracles talks about
Hmm.
forgiveness many times. And Mari Perron in the follow up to the Course of Miracles with the Course of Love talks about forgiveness, which is
Hmm.
all part of Jesus's channelings. And I've mentioned many times when have written biographies or shared a story in the book Modern Ascension that one of my favorite tools around forgiveness that really shifted how I viewed forgiveness was The Way of Mastery and the series of books called The Way of Mastery, which the part one is The
Hmm.
Way of the Heart and talks a whole lot about forgiveness. And I actually found myself because I wanted to find the actual words and how it was described because it's been years since I read it, knowing that we were going to talk about forgiveness. I
Hmm.
pulled up the book again. I often reread those books that have had the most meaning and in our spiral of life. How does it? how does it sound different to me now than it did years ago when I read it? And this is the section, and it really talks about what we're talking about right now. And I just want to read these few paragraphs because I think it so summarizes how forgiveness heals, which is the subsection for this part on forgiveness. Understanding these
Okay.
things, let us look more closely at forgiveness. How does it work? What really occurs when you forgive? You are a conduit of energy. To the to the degree that the conduit is in perfect working order, the energy can flow so radiantly that the conduit actually becomes transparent. That is, it no longer blocks. There's no barrier or limit to the light. When you judge, it is though you contracted and made the walls of the conduit smaller, just like building up rust in your pipes, and the flow becomes less and less. As you forgive judgments, it is though the rust in the pipes is dissolving. It is though the walls of the pipe that are carrying the liquid of God's love begin to expand and become thinner and more transparent. Judgment is contraction. Forgiveness is relaxation, peace, trust, and faith. Forgiveness allows the spaciousness within your consciousness to grow. For when you look upon the thief that has broken into your home and say, I forgive you, you are decreeing the opposite of what you have learned. You are decreeing that nothing can be taken from you. And so that's what we're talking about with energy, right? Like this aspect of standing in your power and more energy flowing through you. The opposite of forgiveness is our judgments, right? We get stuck
Oh,
in our judgments of our mind, and that's why the phrase that forgiveness, when you're forgiving others, the most important aspect of that is the forgiveness of self, because it's our judgment that we're releasing. It's our judgment that we're dissolving and letting go of so that we can be in our power. And that's the aspect of every every action of forgiveness is also self-forgiveness.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That, what you just read nailed it. You just nailed it. And you just summarized it so beautifully there. And I think just to add um, to the power of the phrases in the Ho'oponopono prayer is that the love, when you say, I love you, that word love has such
Mm,
an incredibly high vibration. And that helps release that stuckness that you were talking about and open that channel and create that flow. So when you were talking about the energy, the energetic conduit, I think as soon as you say, I love you, and have that heartfelt intention about it, that the flow just is magnified and radiates out. And, then that beautiful exchange of love is there to heal the situation or the person and yourself. As you said, it's all about self-healing. And you also talked about the fact that Jesus talks about this a lot. And I have one statement here or phrase from Luke, and it said, and this is what Jesus said. He
mm,
said, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not
mm,
condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven.
mm.
So you mentioned that part about
Yeah.
judgment and having no judgment. And I think going through any forgiveness practice helps you to become objective and so therefore non-judgmental and non-condemning and totally forgiving and compassionate and loving.
Mm.
And I think that's our ultimate goal as human beings, is to be that loving being.
And allow, yeah, because when we allow love to flow through us, um, it's love or fear, right? I mean, the
It's
world
love or fear.
operates in love or fear. And if we're in judgment, we're in fear. It's love that heals. And as you said, just the word love, if you just completely feel it when you say it. It's like there's an energy with that, right? Like our words have power.
Our
And
words have
so,
power. Our thoughts have power.
yeah, yes, they
Before the word
do.
comes the thought. And, those thoughts have power as well. And I think it, helps us to be more conscious, more reflective about what it is we're thinking and what it is we are about to say and are saying, and how that is going to affect a change, upon whomever is the recipient of those thoughts and words and deeds.
Yeah, there's a section in here and I'm like, it stands out to me because it's just a few lines here on the physical, like, we think of our bodies as this physical structure, right? And we're talking about
Mhm,
energy and, every philosophy talks about energy in some way, but that energy affects us physically. And so in this book, The
mhm,
Way of Mastery, the phrase around judgment and the physical impact, he says, judgment causes the very cellular structure to break down. If you could see this, you would never judge again. When you judge, even
mm.
the cells of your body go crazy. They vibrate in a completely dissonant way. There's contraction, fluid does not move through the cells. The nutrients do not become transported or delivered to the cells. The waste matter is not processed properly. Everything gets clogged up and there is dis-ease. So therefore,
Dis-ease.
dis-ease. Therefore, beloved friends,
Mhm.
understand well that judgment is not something to take lightly. Should you then judge yourself if you have noticed you have been in judgment? No, only love can heal. So, um,
Yeah,
and then,
no,
and
the
then,
word disease just popped
right.
right up as soon as you said that. You're only harming yourself
Yes.
in all of those ways of being and judging and condemning and blaming and holding grudges,
It's the
and
grudges. It's
oh,
the
oh
holding
my,
right
oh
there.
my, it's the holding grudges. It's not beneficial to anyone, that's for darn sure, and let alone yourself. I mean, and that's where this drawing the power comes back. As long as you hold a grudge or a judgment or pointing fingers and blaming, that energy is going out to that person or that situation. So you're really giving your power away. And is that what you want to do with your energy? Is keep it tied up in holding grudges and hating and blaming and judging and all the rest of it? Or do you want to pull your power back, release all of that negativity, and create a healthy, vital body? We're just talking about the physical body, Sheila, and that is exactly right. That's the first way to create disease within yourself. You're not so much harming the other person as you are harming yourself. So pull all that energy back, and create that beautiful resonance within, that coherence within, and let those cells flourish and vibrate in resonance and in coherence with one another, and create the ease within. Um, you were mentioning the ascended masters, some of the ascended masters that you work with, and we spoke of Jesus, but another ascended master that I work with quite frequently is Saint Germain. And one of the things that he has said through various channels is that the big lesson for us as human beings on earth today is self-empowerment.
Mhm.
So, how can we bring our power back to ourselves? And I think this is a primary way we can do it. This is the very first and primary and one of the most powerful ways we can do it is through
Yeah, and
forgiveness.
opportunities to do that. I mean, I think the reason forgiveness, if you focused on no other practice other than forgiveness, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's unending because I mean, our families, of course, are our first We can go back to
Yes. Yes.
childhood and remember, oh, yeah, that really made me mad. Well, okay, I forgive that. Like, we have
Mhm.
these physical bodies because they vibrate at a lower energy, hold stuff really good. And so
Oh yeah, they know how
they,
to hold on. That's for darn sure.
and our minds,
we we help them
are,
along. We help them to
yeah,
hold all that in, you know.
yeah. And our minds, is probably another fun conversation in the future of just, our minds hold on to things because they think it's protecting us because we don't want to feel a
Mhm.
feeling or we got scared or there was trauma. And so if every day you just practiced forgiveness, whether, you're starting with family and then with friends, and then you can you get frustrated in traffic. It's like, oh, that's just a judgment. How can I forgive? You get frustrated with politics. How can I forgive? Right? Like
Mhm.
it exists everywhere. And like I always say, every moment of resistance is an opportunity for healing. And just being willing to embrace forgiveness, and whether it's, if the Ho'oponopono prayer doesn't resonate with you, Saint Germain, you brought
Mhm.
him up. He often speaks of the law of forgiveness and calling on the law of forgiveness. There's language out there of
Mhm.
extending forgiveness. Every religion, every philosophy has prayers around forgiveness. There's no perfect, I
Mhm.
mean, there's not one right way to do it. It's whatever way brings you back into your heart to call in your power, which is kind of where we started the conversation, right? There's essential oil blends from many, Young Living and doTERRA, and
Mhm.
Glenda
Mhm.
Green has a beautiful temple, spiritual, sacred touch forgiveness blend. And all of, smell brings us back into our bodies. So why do essential oils
Mhm.
help with that? Because they bring you back into your body. And then in your body, you can return to forgiveness, and
Exactly.
claim your power.
Mhm. Exactly. Oh no, you're absolutely right, and it is all about returning to ourselves. But it's not about being this independent being on the earth as well. We're returning to ourselves to remind ourselves how we are connected to each other and how we do have this energetic, we're interconnected, and how we have this energetic tie to others and other things and other beings, and how much we can affect others and other
Mhm.
situations by our own energy. So we can't forget that aspect. Yes, it's important to bring our power back to ourselves and to be in our bodies and, become self empowered through love and forgiveness. But then remembering that we are interconnected and we have this energetic tie with everything and everyone around us.
I love that you brought that up. As we've been sitting here and I haven't had I'm like, I wasn't sure where to introduce it, but the other technique that I don't even remember where I learned this. So this is one I don't even know who to reference. So if I've missed if I've missed somebody that speaks of this, but it's that concept of another way to forgive is to see the light in others. Because when
Mm,
we honor the light in another, then we are remembering the purity of who they are in that connectedness that you just spoke of. I use that technique a lot of, okay, I need to forgive somebody. So I need to, of course, call my own power back, but I need to remember they are light as well, right? Everybody, seeing them and their
exactly.
light and
Yeah.
their power is also an aspect of
Yes.
forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely. Seeing the light in others. It's, I'm don't mean to be presumptuous, but it may be something to do with, the namaste or the yogic
Mm-hmm.
traditions or
Yes.
whatever. And I mean, that is when you say namaste to another person, you are recognizing, the light in me sees the light in you.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you're talking about here, is we are all beings of light. And we're not just the only light bulb here. And so we've got to remember how we are connected to each other. And so you're so right in bringing that up. I'm really glad you brought that up about seeing the light in others as well. So yes, the light in me sees the light in you, and remembering that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, so as we close out this beautiful conversation on forgiveness, is there anything that you would like to either share in closure around forgiveness, but also how people, if they wanted to work with you, right? What kind of services do you offer, and what do you want to share about what you do in the world?
Well, I think, first of all, I'll just maybe mention something that I do every day in practice. And if people want to start creating a daily practice or habit for themselves in terms of forgiveness, one of the things that I do when I sit in meditation every morning, and it could be, whether you sit in prayer or meditation or silence, and just ask your inner self, your inner knowing, what is it that has come up for you today that you need to pay attention to, or that you need to, I used to say, what is it I need to clear today or focus on? But the messages that have been coming to me have been, you need to work on forgiveness with this person, or you need to work on forgiveness with this situation. And so those are the messages that will come. So I will just sit in my meditation and say, okay, what's come up for me for today? And just sit and wait and see what pops into your mind, into your intuition. And then you could spend a few minutes going through a mantra or writing something down, or just going into prayer, or however it is you choose to go through some sort of forgiveness practice. And it doesn't need to take a long time, because it's about bringing that awareness up, recognizing it, accepting it, taking responsibility for it, and then asking for the forgiveness around it. And remembering the love. The love is part of that act of forgiveness as well. So that's a daily practice that people could try to do on their own if they're interested in. A way to get in touch with me, if you're interested in working through energy sessions or through dowsing, whether it's home dowsing or property dowsing for increasing and improving the energy within your living space, the way that you can get a hold of me is through ascensionarts.ca. And you can learn about my different energy sessions there, and some of the ways that you can work with me, that we can work together. One of the things that I have noticed lately is that in any of the energy sessions that I've been doing with people, is the final thing that I always say to them is I talk to them about a forgiveness practice. So even if they've just had a healing session, because sometimes there's a lot of self-blame. We didn't talk a lot about self-blame today. We did bring it up from time to time, but self-blame, and then that goes into feeling guilty about, certain situations or certain ways you've behaved, things that you've said, and the guilt can just build and build and build and build. And that is not healthy either. And so working on this forgiveness, of any forgiveness practice with yourself, can help free up those emotions and feelings of guilt. So I do talk about that at the end of every energy healing or Reiki session that I do and that I've been doing in the past. So once again, it's ascensionarts.ca. And if you're specifically interested in having the energy shift in your home space or workspace or living space, that's ascentiondowsing.ca. So either of those places, you'll be able to get a hold of me.
Thank you, Jan. I love the reminder of a daily practice. I've returned to some of those things myself, of just because we get so busy with life, right? And sometimes we have to remind ourselves to do these simple, even just sometimes a couple of minutes daily practices. They help us just remember who we are, call our power back in, and
it is, and it's part of our
be more
self-care.
present. Yeah, part of our self-care, exactly. So thank you again for being here today. It's been, I think we've mentioned several other topics that I know we'll talk about in the future, ascension dowsing and dowsing. I'm sure there will be people that are curious about that. So we'll have to come back and have fun with that. It's a pretty neat topic. We'll close this out now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sheila. This has really been a wonderful conversation, and I really am honored to have been here and had this chat with you today. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You've just listened to the Spiritual Geek Podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you've enjoyed the episode, be sure to share a comment and rating on your favorite podcast platform. And if you were inspired, consider sharing with friends and family. Love and light to each of you. May your day be filled with joy and wisdom as you consciously create your life.